بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وبعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum everybody. MashaAllah, we have a good crowd. Before we start, if I could ask the brothers to just move up closer so we feel a little bit closer and warmer. If you're able to, I know you may have just had lunch and you're letting it digest. But it just makes it feel nicer to have everybody close together. Let our hearts come together, inshallah. It'll be very nice and appreciated. Jazakumullah khairan. So, we're talking about today, inshallah, masculinity. And you have to ask yourself first this question, what is masculinity? Right? So masculinity, for our purposes, at least for my session, is how we behave as a man. And you have to ask yourself, where are you learning how to behave as a man? What is the model that you're using? And when you ask yourself this question, you have to ask yourself not only where am I directly getting this information from, but more importantly, indirectly, where do I get this information from? Because there's lots of information that you may not think is being taught to you, but indirectly through various media, by looking at different people and the examples that they have, we're picking up things. We learned things. And so both directly and indirectly, we're learning about how to be a man in today's age. Our context will shape our understanding of masculinity. Because if you're looking around, like the person who's living in Asia is in an Asian context. Somebody who's in Africa is in an African context. For us living here in the United States, we're in a context where we are bombarded a lot more than the rest of the world by media. We also have our different cultural heritages that we may be coming from, whatever that might be. And so you have all of these different components that are feeding into our understanding of how to be a man. And predominantly when we look at a lot of the information that's coming to us, especially through the media, you have the alpha male being glorified. Strong, powerful, controlling, aggressive, right? You look at movies, you look at ads, that's a type of male figure that's usually glorified. How often do we see skills as empathy, connection, emotional intelligence, vulnerability? How often do we see men displaying that? To the contrary, they get devalued at times. Say, oh no, those are feminine characteristics. Men don't have that. Or real men don't have that. And you have to ask yourself why. If anybody speaks against that, it says, no, men should have these emotions. We should display these emotions. We should be able to handle these emotions. You get labeled at times. Oh, this guy's progressive. This guy's liberal. He's falling for the Western mindset. What is a traditional role model then? What does our tradition actually say to us? And we have to ask yourself these questions. I'm raising a lot of questions. Hopefully we'll get to answer some of these. 2 points I'd like to make up front. First, what is right and wrong in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do not correspond to liberal versus conservative. Right? Our definition of right and wrong comes from the Quran and the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So things that are traditional or things that are conservative are not necessarily good. Things that are liberal or progressive are not necessarily good. That's not how we judge. Our value system, our principles come from somewhere else. And so we have to ask these questions to see where we have gone astray perhaps, and we can right ourselves. So as soon as you get into this narrative of men being this alpha male, and that's what we're expecting from them, we're in many ways setting men up for failure. And I see a lot of young folks here, and really understand this. If you fall for this, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because social emotional skills are critical for understanding and developing connections with people around you. These skills are critical. But if you limit yourself, say, you know what, real men, the only emotions they display are anger. When they get angry or they get mad, real men don't cry. Real men don't show their emotions. You don't wear your emotions on your sleeve. If that's the perspective you're coming in, you're already damaging yourself, because your connection to your spouse, your connection to your parents, your connection to your children is going to be extremely limited. The only emotion your children will see from you is when you get angry. And for the parents in the room, and for the young folks in the room, ask yourself, what kind of connection do I have to my father, to my children? And for the fathers in the room, ask yourself that, you know what, if you walk into the house, if the family's inside the house, and you walk in and you hear through the door a lot of noise and chatter, people having fun, and as soon as you walk in, dead silence. Shh, Baba's home, Baba's home. Hey, turn that off. Because you know what? The only thing I expect from Baba, angry, mad. Because those are the emotions that he was taught, and that's the only thing he'll ever display. Can't really have a good connection. If I want a connection, I go talk to mom. Does that happen? I see people smiling. I see, young folks, old folks alike. That's reality, but we're falling for this. Is that a good, healthy connection that we have in the family? Absolutely not. So we need to fix this, and we need to change this. And so you ask yourself, why is this happening? Well, is this really the traditional Islamic model? It is not, and we'll get to that. But increasingly, people work long hours. It's difficult to invest time in relationships. You have people who have a very transient lifestyle. You constantly move from one city to another. You got a job, all right, you're in Chicago. Hey, got a better job, I'm moving to LA. Got a better job, I'm moving to New York. Are you really gonna invest time in relationships around you? Or you become a loner, you're like, you know what, I just hang out to myself. And so I'm not gonna make myself vulnerable to people around me. I have this fake persona online, and people online, as long as they're following me, like, dude, this guy is really happy. And they have no clue how sad you are inside, and you keep moving around. You're not able to share those emotions with everybody. This type of stereotyping is not just for us. It also then exists in society. And again, men joke about women, and women will joke about men. And some of these jokes are very bad. They're very wrong. But when they're joking and say, oh man, I got 2 kids and I have this 3rd kid I have to look after. The 3rd kid being the husband. They're joking, but there's a tint of reality to that. Because we do not show much, we do not do much. And so you essentially are being looked after as a kid. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why? I'm raising a lot of questions. And I want us to start thinking, why? Why is this the case? And is this really healthy for us? So let's look, and I'll share a little bit, inshallah, Shakif, I will go more into from the Islamic aspect. But when you look at it from Islamic perspective, yes, there are different roles for men and women. How we pray, how we dress, duties of prayer and fasting, how we dress, different, right? But beyond that, for most everything else, it's the same. It's the same requirement of men and women. There's very little difference. We think of men and women as the opposite sex. And that terminology of the opposite means that sometimes you have to fight with one another. Instead of thinking that way, you think of men and women as the complementary sex. Yes, they are different, but you complement one another. You work with one another for the betterment of society, for the betterment of your own family. So let's look at the example of the Prophet ﷺ to look at a real role model of what a man should be like. A real man, a Muslim man. The Prophet ﷺ, he displayed vulnerability. He displayed his emotions. Everybody knew when Khadija radiallahu anha passed away, yes, the Prophet was sad. He didn't just hold it in. When his uncle passes away, when his grandfather passes away, when his son passes away, yes, there are tears rolling down the eyes. It's not like real men don't cry. The Prophet ﷺ was the definition of a real man. And he showed that, you know what? You display emotions. When the Prophet ﷺ would come home, what was the description that our mothers described? That he would come home and he'd be milking the goat, he'll be mending his clothes, he'll be fixing the shoes. He didn't say, you know what? These are all women's duties. He wasn't like some macho man. It's like, not my problem, man. Women, you can do this. No, he was in the service of his family. At this, I'll briefly allude to it, but it goes into a different theme. Why would you do that? Yes, is to serve. Yes, it's a mindset, is to show that, you know what, we share roles and responsibilities. It's not about male versus female. It's about who has the time and the energy and the ability to be able to do it. But beyond that, from a sociological perspective, you're building something called a shared narrative. When you're standing there doing dishes with your wife, with your children, when you're doing the chores around the house, you're spending time with them. And when you're spending time, you have a way to indirectly communicate. Hey, what happened today? Oh, this happened to you. All right, cool. You're building bonds. You're understanding what's going on. As opposed to having an interview after dinner. It's like, so tell me, what happened today? And then the guys on the other side, the kids are like, nothing, normal, regular, standard. Nobody wants to speak because you're being interviewed. Whereas when you're doing chores around the house, on the side, you're just like, hey, what happened? Cool, all right, cool, this happened. The other, this guy said this person did that. You're building that shared narrative. You're building those bonds. You're building that communication. But that requires that you're actually actively participating in the household chores. It cannot be an artificial thing. It has to be real. We know the famous hadith of Amr ibn As radiallahu anhu when he came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him, who do you love the most? And I'm thinking, as all the companions would think, that I am the most beloved to him. And the answer of the Prophet ﷺ, very clear, very open, very loud, Aisha. So he was not afraid to display in public and exclaim in public, I love my wife. She is the most beloved to me. How many men would say that? Because our traditional thinking is like, hey, what do you mean? Say, I love my wife? You say that out loud? You can't say it in front of the kids. Forget about saying it in front of the public. The Prophet ﷺ declaring it to the world. That yes, I love my wife. She's the most beloved to me. And then it's like, all right, cool. That, that's your wife. But after that, in terms of the men, and it's like, me, Abuha, her father. So yes, it's Abu Bakr, his closest friend, but still he emphasizes the connection to Abu Bakr is through Aisha. It's her father, not my friend, not Abu Bakr, not this. It's her father. Yes, it's the most beloved, but the connection is still there. He's emphasizing, he's still showing everybody the amount of love that he has for Aisha radiallahu anha. We know the hadith of the companion Al-Aqra who saw the Prophet ﷺ kissing his grandson. And the companion says, I have 10 sons, I've never kissed one of them. But instead of saying, all right, this is masculinity, which was the Arab standard at the time, the Prophet ﷺ just shut him down right there. Just shut him down. He said, what can I do? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't put mercy in your hearts, what am I going to do with you? The definition is that, no, kiss your kids. Display affection. Have that sense of connection to them. Be empathetic with people around you. That is a very Islamic, very prophetic characteristic. Instead of being cold and aloof, who has no clue, it's like, I'm a man, I can't feel you. No, you need to be able to feel the person. Young and old alike. When Fatima radiallahu anha came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked for her servant to help in the house, he empathized with her that, okay, you need something, you need help. Instead of just brushing her away, he says, let me show you something better. And he taught her to make the tasbih. But he was empathetic to her. He showed that empathy and she was willing to come and talk to him about problems. When Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, when he's given a task and he forgets, again, the Prophet's empathetic, has that connection to that child. This is the definition of masculinity. Somebody who has feelings, somebody who has emotions, somebody who's willing to display them and is using those feelings and thoughts and emotions to be empathetic with people around them so that he understands who they are, what life circumstances they're going through. And just by looking at them and saying, you know what, something's wrong. I need to help you out. As opposed to being totally oblivious, who have no idea what the other person is going through. That's a real man. So this requires that we change our mindset. It requires changing how we look at things. We are after principles and values. We're not after rigid rules. Rigid rules, this is a man's job, this is a woman's job. It depends on the circumstances. It depends from place to place, time to time. It may change. But what are the principles and values? We want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is our highest principle. What would be pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If I did this task, would it please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Would it make things easier at home? If so, I should do it. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he rolled up his sleeves. He was helping out at the house. Because he was after what? Pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wasn't after wondering what people will say about him. So what should we be doing? We really have to study this deeply. As I mentioned, when you look at media, when you look at what all the sources of information coming into us, even the role models that we have around us or people who we take as role models, sometimes they may be displaying things that are not the best. And so you have to ask yourself questions and be very critical about that. What are the values and principles of masculinity that you want to adopt? You have to take ownership of this. So one of the institutes I'm with is the Family and Youth Institute, right? So I'm active with both with MAS and the FYI. So FYI is having sessions next door, but if you go to the website, there's a lot of information on effective communication. There's a lot of information on thoughts and feelings. Like, how do you control your thoughts and feelings? How do you display in an appropriate Islamic manner your thoughts and feelings? Have we taught ourselves that? If we have not taught ourselves, then it's about time. We need to learn. The tools are there. The information is there. From Islamic perspective, you have organizations like MAS, who organizes conference, or your masjid. Talk to imams like Sheikh Kifa, whoever. So, from Islamic perspective, how should I be behaving? The point of that is you have to take ownership of this. Today we're listening to this message. That's great. You're going to say, you know what? Yep, I want to be a better man. Great. If a year from now I come and ask you, how much have you changed? What will your answer be? Take the example of somebody who doesn't know how to make wudu. He comes up and says, I need to make wudu. Learn how to make wudu. You're like, you know what? Let me show you this YouTube video. I'll show you, and then I'll point you to the YouTube video. You can watch it 20 times over until you get the wudu right. Cool. You meet the person again a week later. It's like, hey, how's your wudu? It's like, haven't had a chance to look at the video yet. I'll get to it though. It's really important. All right, no problem. A month later, haven't had a chance to look at the video yet. 6 months later, a year later, they still haven't. You're going to ask, hey, dude, is this a priority for you or not? I mean, you don't have time to watch a 5-minute video and practice it a couple of times. You can't tell me this is a priority for me. I really want to learn how to make wudu. I ask you this question. For all the things that we're learning, especially this topic, is it a priority for us to fix our mindset? If so, I've mentioned some of the tools that are available. If a year from now we stand up and ask this question, how much have we changed? What will our answer be? So we need to actively change some of our thinking, some of our doing to be more in line with what the Prophet ﷺ taught us in terms of our emotions, in terms of our values, and how we treat one another, inshallah.